to me. Talk legal to me. Break it down so I can see. Make the hard stuff sound so sweet. On the talk legal to me. Talk legal to me. Oh, talk to me. Plain words, clear and easy. Every rule, every mystery. On the talk legal to me. Yeah, Cavs.
Welcome to the Talk Legal to Me podcast. I'm your host, Shanita Q, and today we're going to talk about divorce. Divorce in and of itself is an emotional topic, and so one of the things we're going to talk about today is how our emotions can influence our decisions. Today we are welcoming our first in-studio guest, attorney Shawn McKenna. Shawn, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I've been practicing law since 2009. I got my Juris Doctorate degree, which all lawyers have to get. And then I went on and got a Master's of Law in Family Law from Chicago, Kent.
Okay.
And I've been doing exclusively family law since then.
Okay, wonderful. All right, well, thank you for joining us today. And so we're just going to dive right on in. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so Shawn, you have handled divorce cases now for a few years. And so, in your opinion, how would you say, how much do emotions influence the decisions that people make during divorce?
So I tell my clients, right when they call me for the initial consultation or when I meet with them, that your first choice is whether or not you're going to get divorced.
Okay.
So it's kind of like flipping a light switch on or off.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it's just a matter of finding an attorney or picking an attorney. And it's a very intimate relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to cut out a lot of the emotions during that decision-making period.
Okay. So, I know I've had, when clients come to me, I've had clients come, sometimes angry because they're coming in off the cusp of something, bad happening. I've had clients come when they're, afraid that, they won't be able to maybe sustain a lifestyle or something like that. And so in situations like that, have you ever had to possibly, talk a client down or, kind of help them deal with or navigate those emotions at the outset?
So I think the science is pretty clear that when you're in a heightened emotional state, a different part of your brain takes over. And I think it's very important that we as neutral third parties, as attorneys, step in to then guide them. I like to do a few thought exercises with my clients. One is I want you to envision, what life is like after the divorce.
Okay.
And because that helps them get some perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times when clients are in an emotional state, they are telling a story that they've told many times. So it's almost like they're playing a track on a tape.
Okay.
Where it sounds polished.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to break that up for them so that I can help them get to where they need to go.
Okay. That's good because, of course, as practitioners and attorneys, it's our job to help kind of guide, the client when they're going through those, or I guess to navigate those emotional feelings and stuff that they may have. I know I've had to turn away clients, and by turn away, I mean tell them, I'll say something like, well, are you 100% sure you're ready for divorce? Because of all of the emotions that it's going to bring. And sometimes when I have clients that come in hot,
Yeah.
it's like I have to tell them, I understand you're angry right now, but maybe sit in it for a little while,
Right.
so that you can possibly remove some of the emotions so you don't make a drastic, decision. So have you found that you have to do the same thing sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you've gotten those calls before where somebody just wants advice so that they have ammunition in their next fight with their spouse.
I talked to an attorney.
Yeah.
And the attorney said, Yeah.
And I'm like, you're not serious.
Uh-huh.
Call me when you're serious.
Yeah. Okay, I get it. Okay, so what about situations, I guess moving to the next topic, where it's time, you're in a divorce, people decide that, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
And then it's time to start parting with assets. So why do you think the marital home becomes such an emotional issue? Why does everyone want the marital home?
Well, honestly, I think the biggest reason is most of the people that want a home are locked in with a wonderful interest rate, whether it be 2 or 3% that they refinanced during COVID, and now they're looking at 6 or 7%, where even if they buy out the other person's interest in the equity, they're looking at a 2x, 3x of their monthly payment. So on top of the fact that they could be in a good school district and they want to keep that school district, or the neighborhood they live in is really hot and it's difficult to find real estate or to replace what they have.
So how do you counsel your clients with respect to that? How do you help them decide?
Well,
Or are you able to help them decide?
the best way to get rid of a house during a divorce is to sell it and to apportion the equity after the mortgage is paid off and everything else. But if they're really stuck on keeping the house, number one, they have to figure out if they can afford it. If they have the salary, if they have the credit to afford not just refinancing the existing mortgage, but to get a mortgage that is above and beyond that to pay off the other person at the closing.
Okay. So have you had a scenario, I know especially back during COVID time, I had at least 2 clients or situations where the parties, they coexisted. They both stayed in the marital residence and just
After the divorce?
After the divorce, it just kind of like coexisted, and they did in the idea, and I'm assuming it worked because I haven't heard from the client since then, was that when things got better or the other person was able to afford to move out, then they would move out. Have you had situations like that where they cohabitated?
No.
Divorced in the same house?
Never. Well, there was, no, I haven't. No. I'm guessing they're a little bit older.
Definitely were, no children involved.
Yeah.
So it was probably a little easier and less emotional, in that respect.
They probably were roommates for a very long time, and they just continued to do so, minus the marriage component.
Yeah. So that situation certainly isn't the most ideal, and I've only had it, those, that very few, those 2 times that I can think of. What about, have you had any client not want to part with the marital home because of, memories? We raised our children here, and the kids are comfortable, and even, especially given the fact that they can't afford to stay.
Yeah. Well, I've never had a client say they want to keep it because of good memories. I mean, if they're going through a divorce, they have a recency bias, and they're probably thinking, well, there's a lot of bad memories associated with the house. Sometimes people want to keep the house just because the other side wants the house, and they want to spite the other person. So if it's ever a situation where both parties can afford to refinance and buy out the other person, I strategically tell my client to not be so in love with keeping the house.
Yeah.
To pretend like you could take it or leave it. And then that gives me a better negotiating position to actually get the house.
Okay. All right. That's a good strategy. I guess for someone who really wants the house, pretend like, you don't want it. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Okay. What about, have you seen people fight over assets that have very little financial value?
Yeah, so, let's circle back to that. But
Okay.
I had a client once who was down to his last $20,000. And we had everything wrapped up in the settlement, in the marital settlement agreement. And I told him, I said, well, just give your wife $10,000 and you keep the $10,000.
Mhm.
And he said, no, Shawn, I'd rather give it to you.
That's some anger.
Yeah.
And so I guess so when you have clients that feel that way, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that?
I write a CYA, or cover your ass letter, and the reason that I do that is you're allowed to not take my advice.
Mm-hmm.
You're allowed to make stupid decisions and take stupid strategies against my advice, as long as you sign a letter saying, I'm telling you, you shouldn't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they decide to take that course of action, as long as it's not unethical, then I may take that course of action.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I guess so that's more, I guess if we move into the next question, that sounded more like revenge to me. I'd rather give it to you.
Well, it's an emotional decision, but also I think they're weighing the pros and the cons of it. I mean, I tell my clients, back to your original question, I tell my clients if it's under $10,000, I won't fight for it, and you shouldn't fight for it. I mean, once you get into arguing over the Kelley Blue Book of each individual's cars, you've lost the point. Or a $2,000 piano, it's,
Yeah.
can you go buy a new one?
Yeah, I think I agree. So what about, so that's that whole cost of winning, I guess, aspect that the client has. So when you talk about that, how important is cost, benefit analysis during divorce?
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with that with your clients?
No, I think cost benefit analysis is very important. You don't want to spend $10,000 to fight over something that's worth $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell my clients, if they live in the same home and they just started the divorce and there's certain pictures that you can't replace or certain items, make sure you safeguard those items.
Okay. Yeah. So I like to tell my clients when we have those situations, I tell them, I'm like, well, I look at it as you're throwing good money after bad, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So why pay me or spend X amount of dollars just to get a little bit? So sometimes when you break down, at least for me, sometimes when you break down the math, that kind of get the clients back on the straight and narrow to kind of make decisions that are not emotional in that space. Okay. So are you always able to recognize when your clients have emotions driving their decisions?
Yeah, I mean, we've both been doing it long enough that you know where it's coming from,
Mm-hmm.
and you know whether or not it makes sense. I mean, I think after a certain number of years of practicing law, both lawyers have a good idea of where the settlement's going to land. 5 or 10% this way or that way.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to the personal property fights, I like to tell them that it's not what you paid for it. It's the garage sale value that's going to be put on it. When it comes to personal items in the home, I'm not of the mindset to make a list in a settlement agreement of each individual couch and love seat that each side gets. I just tell them to work it out and let me know if it's a problem. Go through the home and put post-it notes on what you want and then talk to the other spouse and see if you can work it out.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to get the lawyers involved, because all the value will be gone after that.
So now this will be our fun segment because it piggybacks right off of that. All right, so it's worth the fight or let it go. So I'm gonna throw out an asset.
Yeah.
And you can tell me worth the fight or let it go. Right. All right. So I think I know the answer to this one. The $500 television.
Yeah, just buy a new one. Just go to Costco, buy a brand new one, get a bigger one.
You can always get a good deal Black Friday, right?
Yeah. Around Super Bowl.
Okay, the $3,000 dining room set.
No, throw it out. Nobody eats at a dining room set anyway.
At least not today's day, especially with the kids. They're on their cellular devices.
Right.
The family dog.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a dog person. You know, I don't have a dog, but yeah, it's worth the fight.
So fun fact, before I became an attorney, I used to work for a solo practitioner. It was my very first job out of college. This is even before I went to law school. And he handled a divorce for a couple. They didn't have any children. They had a dog.
Yeah.
And so they were fighting tooth and nail over the dog.
Oh.
And when it finally settled, they had visitation rights with the dog.
That was probably before they had, you know, visitation rights with dogs now.
Yep. And so that was in the late 90s.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, it came down to who actually purchased the dog, which is like a weird area, and some judges would actually go in and kind of treat it like a child.
Mm-hmm.
But I always wondered, in cases like that, not that I'd ever do it, but before the Illinois Marriage and Dissolution of Marriage Act started treating dogs kind of like children, when they were property, and if there was a divorce pending and they were fighting over the dog, I've never heard of this, but I suspect it happened in some case. What would happen if one of them put the dog down?
Yeah.
There would then be a dissipation claim?
I mean, would it? I don't think it'll be a dissipation claim, not in today's day. But back in the, the late 90s, it probably would have been a dissipation claim. But then you have to treat it like a sick child, right? You can't take a sick child off life support without at least consulting the other parent, right? That's what I would think would happen in today's day and age, the way we treat animals, because, you know, as people, we've grown attached to them, right? Yeah. All right, so we know the family dog is worth the fight. What about grandma's China?
It's irreplaceable. Unless you can go on eBay and find the exact same set, but then it wouldn't be chipped in the exact same way. So these are all personal decisions. I mean, yeah, I do understand if it has. I mean, it's hard to put a value on old china, even if it's worth $3,000. But then it's okay. What is it worth to this person? Is it worth $20,000 in attorney's fees?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's grandma something. To one person, it might be worth that much. Yeah. For my husband, it's not grandma's china. It's grandma's waffle iron.
Oh.
And I tell him, like, all the time, I'm like, just go buy a new waffle iron. He was like, no, it was my grandmother's. I'm like, oh my goodness. All right, what about a $50,000 retirement account?
Well, I mean, if it was grown during the marriage, it's marital property. So yeah, you should fight for it because you'll at least get, you know, a good portion of it.
Yeah.
And then you can transfer it into a rollover IRA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. The marital home you can't afford on your own.
Well, if you can't afford it, then it's going to get sold. And if you can't agree on value, then get an appraisal from an MAI appraiser, and, you know,
let it go. Yeah, let it go and start fresh.
Yeah, new memories.
Yeah, build new memories. All right, last one. A business you spent 20 years building.
Well, it depends on if it's worth anything. So you look at whether or not it was started before or after the marriage to determine whether it's marital property, and then you look at, are there any hard assets that you could sell? Do they own a building? Do they own equipment? And then you have to look at the liabilities. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people, when there's a business, they don't look at the business tax returns and look at how the retained earnings have changed. Mm-hmm. So that's always a good place to hide money.
So it depends.
Yeah, because then you have to spend $30,000 to $50,000 to get a business valuation done if it's a marital business, and then if one of the spouses is involved in the business, then there's a pretty significant key person discount. And then if you're doing all of that, you're probably already $100,000 into attorney's fees.
So what's the final?
Yeah, you gotta fight for it. And then on top of it, if there's maintenance or spousal support, you'll need to determine what that person's income is, which wouldn't be as easy. I mean, it's much easier when somebody works at a big corporation, they're a W-2 employee.
I agree. I say the business, you need to fight for it. All right, so we always end our show with our closing argument.
Yeah.
So basically, you'll just tell us what your, what your takeaway is. All right, Shawn, what's your closing argument?
So, as a divorce attorney, I do not believe in divorce, and I don't think you should get divorced. And I tell my clients this all the time, but they don't listen. So, yeah, there are instances of mental illness and physical abuse where you have no choice. But I see it time and time again where people get married, they have a problem with the spouse, they get divorced, and then they find somebody else, they get married again, and lo and behold, they have the same problems with the second spouse without actually examining, what's going on in their own lives.
Yeah.
So
my closing argument would be if you find yourself in the space of having to get a divorce, I think before the decision is made, you have to decide if the divorce is what you really want. Because like you said, sometimes you have to just do the work, and all relationships have, problems, and you might be able to work those out. But if you cannot do that, you have to keep in mind that, your emotions, your anger, your feelings have to be removed from it in order for you to make sound, if nothing else, financial decisions and trying to separate. And that's it. So Shawn, I would like to thank you for joining us today. Can you tell our guests how they could reach out to you if they need your services, your socials, your website, whatever it is that you have?
Yep. So if you Google Shawn McKenna, Law Office of Shawn McKenna, or you type in lawfirmfordivorce.com, you'll be able to find my website. And then if you Google a little bit harder, I'm sure you can find my Facebook and Instagram, but that's kind of private. So you're welcome to look, but I'm an easy guy to find. I do divorces, family law, child custody, parentage cases.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Until next time.
This episode of Talk Legal to Me is sponsored by Golden Law. Golden Law helps individuals, families, and business owners protect what matters most. Whether you're planning your estate, starting a business, navigating probate, or dealing with real estate matters, the right legal advice can make all the difference. Because the truth is, many of life's biggest challenges can be avoided with the right legal planning in place. Golden Law is committed to helping individuals and families protect what they've built and prepare for what comes next. To learn more, visit goldenlawpc.com.
The information shared on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as legal advice. Listening to this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you need legal advice regarding your specific situation, please consult a qualified attorney licensed in your jurisdiction.
Talk legal to me. Talk legal to me. Break it down so I can see. Make the hard stuff sound so sweet. On the Talk legal to me. Talk legal to me.